Both is Good, a podcast where DMs, GMs, lore keepers, and anyone who runs tabletop games talk to each other about how they run their games. I'm Adam, and I've been running my game mostly by the book.
And I'm Siera, and I hate math.
And this is a nice opportunity for us to pick each other's brains about the various ways in which we run our D&D 5e games, and for us to just hang out.
Hanging out.
Yeah. The first episode
Cool.
just went live yesterday.
Oh my gosh. It did.
It's cool.
It was a success. I didn't realize when I set the live stream time, like, this is just how I don't think about things, apparently, that it started at the exact same time that the Wednesday game starts on the exact same bi-weekly schedule.
Uh-oh.
So
We'll figure that out.
I was watching it on one monitor, making sure it wasn't going crazy while DMing. It was fine.
It was pretty funny. I was making messages in chat, and at one point just got a DM that's like, I'm running my Wednesday game right now. It's like, that
Yeah.
was great. Remarkable. Wouldn't be able to do it. It's incredible.
Yeah. We'll get into it. I'll talk about how the game went, but yeah.
Yeah.
It was fine for this game, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we go into now. We just talk about our weeks in D&D. Do you just want to hop off? How'd that Wednesday game go?
Sure, yeah. It was fine. This group in particular gets real bad decision paralysis, like bad. And it's gotten worse the longer they've been in the campaign, which I don't know if that's a testament to like better understanding the world or like genuinely not know, because in my brain, and maybe this is me being a bad DM, in my brain, the party at this point in the story has like picked a trajectory, but they haven't.
Oh, so
they're
they should
like,
have, but they haven't
yeah.
yet?
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of just like, we're in this new town. They've been in this new town for like 3 sessions now, but people were missing, so they didn't want to get into anything. And now everyone was there, so they were just talking like, here's all the bounties we have. Here's what we know is going on in the town. Here's what we know is going on in the greater cosmos. Here's what we know is going on in the even greater thing. So like, what are we gonna do? And like, they eventually tried to do things and then got frustrated that there was like a very logical stopgap that would like is an intentional reason that they like can't do this, and instead of trying to problem solve around it, they just went and did a bounty.
Sounds about right. Ooh, there's resistance
They almost killed
this way. No, thank you.
Yeah. They like threatened to kill a person just doing their job.
Ooh.
And then went and did a bounty.
All right.
Yeah, so that was yesterday. And then Tuesday, we normally play the podcast game every other Thursdays, but I wasn't feeling well, so we rescheduled. I played that on Tuesday, and it felt like a very similar session, although y'all are like making moves and figuring stuff out.
Yes.
But they're like in a very similar place where they like ended a story arc, and now they're like in trying to like decide what to do next. And that was a fun and very different feeling session.
Yeah, that was very much. It felt a lot like let's take a deep breath. Like all of these things happened. We've kind of talked about it on the road, but now we're back in a town where we feel somewhat safe. So let's just reset and give kind of like this idea of a slice of life outside of imminent danger, which I don't think this group as a whole has had like a real moment to do yet. So like me as a player, I dislike those moments. Like I want to keep going. I want to get the story. I want to just do something. I want to make a decision and just commit to it. Which is how I'm trying to play all my characters. Like the first game I played, I was the same, like, I don't know if we should do this. What are the consequences? Maybe we should really overthink this. And as I've played more and more, I've just become the character that's like, we have a goal. Let's do that one right now. don't care what the consequences are.
Yeah.
Let's just do something. Let's make a choice. Go.
Well, and in this scenario, there are like actual in-world consequences that go against who your character fundamentally is for not going and doing that thing right now. Right? Yeah.
So it was fun. I had a great time in that session. I thought there were a lot of cool moments between individual characters. And everyone just got to flesh themselves out a little bit more. And I'm excited for that one. That was good. Then we played Saturday game too.
We played the Saturday
game.
Oh, jeez.
Yep.
One of the other people in the party whom we love and adore went off on their own and killed a cop.
Well, attacked a senator, essentially.
Attacked a senator. And both Adam and I's characters apparently have a very reasons to stay under the senator and or the governmental body's radar. And when we found out, we were like, peace.
Deuces. You don't know us. We're out of here.
You never seen my face.
So that's gonna lead to cool storytelling, though. Like, I like that in a party dynamic. You know?
Yeah. It was, I think this doesn't happen super often, I don't know for you, but for me, it was like one of those rare moments where as a player, I went, I don't know how I would DM this.
Yeah?
I have no idea what I would do if this happened in my party. But, well, not like in my party, but like, I don't know how I'd fix this at this table.
Yeah.
But it's Daniel's game, and he did a great job, and he pulled in an NPC, and
I think he handled it very well.
We got loot, and it was
definitely
great.
Had a solution for it. Yeah, it was one of the things.
And then the dice.
Yeah.
The dice told the best story of all in that scenario. Myself and one of the two other players out of our four-person party rolled really high on this check, and we learned something about... We learned that we're going to go fight a hag. That the bad guy the whole time was a hag.
Yeah.
And we just needed to go find her, and now that we know where it is. And there's an inherent tie to this hag to my backstory. And so I pulled the string knowing that Adam's character is very money and favors driven. And was just like, if you help me with this, I'll help you with whatever the fuck is going on with you.
This should be good.
Yeah.
Should be good.
Should be good.
Trade. Yeah. Very RP heavy session.
Yeah. It was a very RP heavy session.
I think I rolled dice twice, which is fine.
I don't think I... Yeah. I think I rolled dice that one time. I got a nat 20.
Yeah. So, but then we're looking at a combat.
Yeah, those are the only games. Oh, yeah. I've never fought a hag.
They could be scary. They could be no good.
I'm glad I'm a stealthy little bitch.
Pretty slippery if played to their full context. We're going to need to find some things. We're going to need some help. But it should be good. I'm
a stealthy little hoe. I'm just going to hide in the trees.
Just going to hide around. Sneak out.
Hopefully not turn into a badger.
Anyway,
how was your weeks in D&D?
They've been good. I'm trying to think where. I think on the penultimate session for the Sunday game. The Sunday game's coming to a close. Ooh. We've returned back to the first location we were in during the pre-game one-shot session that we had to set up the world. So it was really cool to hear the DM go through the description of the area and everything that he did the first time we all came together to do that first one shot online for it. And it's a cool, full circle kind of story, but with completely different characters coming in and seeing what's there. And now all the pieces have kind of fallen into place where So that's pretty cool. It's always kind of a mixed feelings at the end of a campaign because it's really fun because you've completed the story, but it's also like, kind of sad to end the story and like to say goodbye to those characters. But I'm excited for it. It should be a lot of fun. We usually does a pretty good epilogue, but we'll see how the fight goes. We haven't lost yet in a final battle in any of his campaigns. So, I kind of have that weird feeling in the pit of my stomach that maybe this won't be a happy ending at the end of this one, depending on how the dice go.
Ooh.
So, but it should be fun regardless. And that's been the Sunday game. It's going well. Saturday game we talked about. Digimon RPG still on hiatus for now. Friday game has been meeting. We've been down one player consistently, but we've been going through a story arc where it's kind of stemmed from a series of one-shot characters. I've had like a through line of a villain, or quote-unquote villain, just like a character that's been showing up in all of them. And now the main party's finally interacting with that character because of the events of a different one-shot where essentially his tower got transported into the middle of a swamp and is now opening a rift into another dimension that's really bad. So they just made their whole escapades through the tower. They defeated all the creatures there. They fought essentially what is a servant to a very old unspeakable god that was trying to use that rift to bring the plot to come around. And it was a intense nail-biter fight where they had to short rest in the middle of the fight using a force cage and then managed to solve a little puzzle that I put into the middle of that room for the fight, release the Archmage from the prison who helped them defeat the creature. Oh, and now they have to deal with that tomorrow. The fallout of all of that, because that didn't fix the rift. So now they have to figure out how to fix the rift. So,
yeah. I love that.
It's really cool.
It's so good.
I like it. And now that I know that we have a video. Didn't realize we would just be doing video. But
we are now, baby!
So like I have just the rough draw of the setting for that one. Nice. I was really into it. But yeah. It's been my week. So
excuse me.
Speaking of clunky segues, we're talking about session prep.
Talking about session prep. The magic. Very controversial topic. It's funny you want to talk about this because I was literally in someone's... During my workday, I like to just tune into people's Twitch channels, and I have a few of my go-tos, and one of them someone pretty prominent in this community, and I just randomly clicked in to hear her going off about session prep, and the chat is just it's just this battle between chat and this person. Yeah. And I just kept throwing in my little tidbits. And every time she would be like, oh yeah, that's good advice.
Hell yeah.
Listen to that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe I can help someone. Maybe let's talk about session prep. And then you brought it up and I was like, yeah, let's fucking do it.
And this is the biggest grain of salt we've ever had at the beginning of a discussion. Because there is no official go-to 100% best way to session prep. There is not a blanket statement that's going to work for everyone. Everybody's session prep's going to be different. Which is why this is going to be kind of a cool conversation between us. Because I don't know how you session prep. We talked about town prepping. But overall session prepping is something that's...
Well, also on Saturday, we stayed in the Discord server until 1 a.m. Pacific time for me. I'm the farthest west out of everyone. Yeah. It was 3 a.m. or something for you. And yeah, we were just talking about DMing and shit. And we talked about it a little bit, but yeah, I'm excited to dig into it.
So again, these are just what we do to session prep. Maybe it helps give you all a little bit of ideas about how you can session prep. But ultimately do what works best for you.
Yeah.
That being said, how should we start? I think so there's one thing to make, because this is a broad concept that we will probably get more specific sections of in future episodes. But like as a
Yes.
whole, there are different types of session prep you can do at different times. Like I know session prep for the first session for me was way bigger than what my session prep is per session prep, you know? So you have to get the ball
Yeah, well,
rolling and then you can keep
mm-hmm.
going.
Yeah, I would say session prep is very different than world
Yeah.
building or campaign
Mm-hmm.
prep. Because I'll even do campaign prep between session
Yeah.
preps.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, just for the focus of this, what we're talking about is prepping for a session for session, not for that first session, not for the story arc as a whole. We're just talking,
Mm-mm.
we ended the session last time and we got to get ready for the next one. What are the
Yep.
things that you do and go to for that when you start?
Yeah. Well, first thing that I will do, well, here's a disclaimer for
Okay.
me.
All right.
Already starting with like the
Yep.
caveats. And I know I said this on Saturday. I don't normally do a lot of like session to session prep.
Okay.
I like to prep story arcs. And then like if I know the general, we've talked about this in our other episode in creating settlements. I like improv. I like it to be super collaborative with my players. I like them to feel like they really hold agency over the story and the plot and what's happening. So I feel like the best way for me to do that is to prep the story arc or the chapter. And so I'll have all these beats. I'll call them out. Like once they find this, then this will happen the next day or something. So when I look at my in-between sessions prep, I'll look at any highlighted notes. I like to highlight any names that I've made up, any locations that I've made up, anything someone says like, oh, we need to go find this leather worker so I can get my armor fixed. And I'm like, well, I don't know if that's going to, like I try to jot things like that down in session. So I start there. I start with reviewing notes, thinking about the last session, and figuring out what gaps I need to fill in that overarching story arc to get them and help them be successful in the next session. So that's the first thing. What's the first thing you do?
Cool. The first thing I do, and this might be kind of a cop-out, is I sit on the end of the session for several days, and I just think about how it ended. Because I too really enjoy improv. And again, if you're not good at improv, don't feel bad about that. There's definitely ways that you could prep to just like make things work a little bit easier. You don't have to have all the improv there. But the way
And we can talk about some of those because I didn't like improv in the beginning. So the way that I session prepped in the beginning is very different than how I session prep now.
Yeah. Same. Like I have just pages of people and what they do and descriptions about who they are and where they're going to go and what they're going to do. But as we've gotten further on in the campaign, now my session prep is more like I also like to improv and I like to have my players kind of deciding where the story is going. So the way I do that is I have big events that are happening that are going to impact the world whether or not they intervene. And just the fact that that's going to be there and that's going to be like a thing that's happening will usually draw people to go check it out. And if they don't check it out, that's fine. It'll just have a different impact on the world. So what I plan is I plan the big event. I plan things that will happen to show them session by session that there's something happening so it's not a surprise. And then each session I'm prepping what's immediately in front of them and where it looks like they're going. And I try to do just like a small plot line, a small like rising action, climax, resolution. And I try to do one of those in each session where it makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it sounds like we do similar things.
Yes, except I spend about 2 to 3 hours every day before the session jotting down notes about where they've been and what they're heading to. And then also
Yeah.
part of my prep, because I'm doing XP, is I'll design what the encounter day is going to look like. This is probably all going to be backwards. So
Mm.
like I'll calculate how much XP they need to get in an adventure day. I'll go through monsters that make sense to the story that's being told. I'll design rooms and situations that would make sense for them to be encountered. I'll think of ways that maybe they could be, intercepted or ignored or gone past. And like I would like to reward that too, because if you avoid a combat, that's almost more beneficial than having the combat. I kind of like to reward those kinds of
Yeah.
ideas. And then I kind of get the general gist of the adventure day and how that's going to go. And I usually plan one adventure day in advance. And then when it's a lore day, then I just like, all right, here's all the lore they're getting. I'm going to improv some of this lore and the interactions, but here are the key information that they're going to get from these interactions. And what they do with that is up to them.
So you strategically, I know you mentioned like you want there to be conflict and resolution. And then you've also mentioned like adventure days and lore
Yes.
days. So can you talk a little bit how those come
How
together?
they all come together.
Those two things.
Adventure days and lore days?
Well, like is an adventure day automatically a like conflict day, and is a lore day automatically a resolution day, or
No.
is it more fluid?
It's more fluid than that. So like I interweave the two of them a lot. So every time they're on an adventure, they're on it for a reason related to the story that's happening. And as they're going through the adventure and they're fighting the things, they're learning more about what's happening and how they could stop it and how it's related to them and what they're doing and the big picture of what they're looking for. Right? And sometimes the lore days are the start of the conflict because they're learning about, you know, suddenly they learn that there's this group that they've been a part of, and they learn something new about that group that they didn't know before, and now maybe they don't trust them. So, what are the steps they take then to do that? How are they going to subvert that expectations? How are they going to, like, kind of swap that mentality around to use it to their advantage or disadvantage?
Yeah.
But yeah, so like the one I'm prepping for today, they just finished killing a big thing that almost killed them all. So it wouldn't make sense for me to throw them straight into combat again, because that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. But they came here specifically because one of the characters had got information about this place and knew that they could learn something very, very important about the world if they came here and helped this wizard or found a way to get into this wizard's favor.
Yeah.
And now they've got that, so they're going to get that information that they initially set off to find, for better or worse. And so I don't like to, like, I didn't have this planned out in the beginning. Like, in my big arc for, like, this section, like, this tower never existed. Like, it wasn't on my radar, it wasn't there, but it existed because I had a player who couldn't be there for a time. So I wanted to design something for the 3-player party instead of the 4-player party to do and still have fun on the day where they don't feel like they're leaving that character behind in the main story, but still have it connected to the main story. And so I like to leave.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's why I spend a whole ton of time that not everyone has to, prep for a session every week and put a bunch of extra stress on myself.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. The reading of my highlighted notes from the session before normally happens about either a 10-minute time frame the day of session when I get a break from work, or on Sunday before the game when I'm like on the computer, if I'm like exporting an episode or like something that I'm working on is like buffering or something, I need to just wait. Like that's when I kind of look at it and think about it. Obviously, of course, like to break it down, like, it really depends on what's
Mm-hmm.
happening in the story, right? So, like, right now, because as I described, like, both parties are in this strange limbo where you all have everything in front of you that I could possibly give you, and it's a lot, and you have to now decide what you would like to do, and you fully understand the repercussions of like waiting on certain decisions.
Just my character is very much like, let's do
So
this. Let's do this right now. 3 people have died since last night because nothing's being done about this. We should do this. And everyone's like, I want to get a haircut and go deal with something else. Okay.
There are other people in the world who are trying to help. That's why they keep dying.
Yes. This is no shade on the rest of the party. Like, everyone can make the decisions that they're gonna make, and I will go with those decisions. I'm not gonna be a stickler and be, you didn't choose my decision. I'm gonna be a stick in the mud about this because that's not fun. But I'm definitely like, yeah,
every party needs a straight guy.
This is clearly an issue.
Yeah. So
sorry, I said.
Early on in DMing, no, it's okay. Early on in DMing, my session prep was pretty mechanical, actually. Like, I would actually write rolling tables for, like, the weather and, like, what is the probability that they find certain clues, things like that. Like, all of that. I would prep NPC names. I would give them little like quips and characteristics. I would do all of that. I would spend like an hour or more in between every session, like very awesomely contemplating. And I'm a rare case where I'm running the same campaign for the 3rd time now on a podcast. So like, I don't know all the NPCs. Fuck no. I just learned that like I feel comfortable making up those names on the spot now.
That's awesome. It's really funny that you brought up the weather because I have this note card that I use for my game. That's just a weather card. So I just have 3 different players roll a d20. And then it just decides stuff. And that's from the official DMG. This table exists for the weather. Yeah.
Yeah, rolling weather.
Also what I use is just a bunch of note cards with all of the weird rules like chase rules and weather rules and buying and selling items rules and this is the social interaction card. Straight from the DMG. The nice rules.
Nice.
Well, I don't have to remember them.
Yeah. Important. You can't remember everything. So yes, I used to do that. Now I know who the key players are. I have their names written down so I don't forget them because I will forget them if I don't. Like, I don't remember the name of the footman at the castle, but you will 100% meet him.
Yeah, it's
like, and he has a name, and I should.
Depending on the story that you play, if you're a DM, you're probably making more than 7 characters for the party to interact with, and 7's about the number that our brains could keep efficiently. So you've got to have those written down somewhere.
Yeah. Yep. I might also. This is where session prep gets real tricky, where you try to like figure out what they're gonna do next and make sure you have it prepped, right? If you are one of those DMs that really doesn't like improv, you could just set up the rule at your table and be like, hey, at the end of every session, we need to make a clear decision on what we're going to do in the next section. Which I've played at tables that are like that, and it's kind of nice because then you pull yourself out of character and you're just like, okay, what does everyone actually want from this game next session? And people can be like, oh, well, we had like a lot of lore this time. I want to punch something. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. Then we can go do a bounty. You know, like it facilitates really great
that's a
conversation at the
great
table.
use of above the table talk, which I think maybe doesn't, like, I'm sure people talk about it, but I don't hear about it a lot. And that's a really like important thing to do with your other players as a player or as a DM. Just to have those moments where you step back and you just like, hey everyone, above table, like this is what my character is trying to convey. Like I don't know if I'm role playing it, but that's how I feel like I'm role playing it. And this is what, because that kind of conversation is a godsend if you're a DM. Because if you don't know what they want,
not everyone's trying to run an actor-led table that has $1 million production values,
and I can assure you that those
film.
productions they have over the table talk that just doesn't happen at the table. Like that's definitely something that they talk about and just don't show.
Yep.
Like it's so important. And yes, I think that's super great if you're bad at improv. Not if you're bad at improv. That's the wrong wording. If improv's like not your forte, or if you dislike doing it, or if it makes you like uncomfortable to like work on it on the fly, it's completely reasonable to just like make that one of your expectations for the table. Just because you're playing D&D, you're all there to have fun, right? Like that's the number one.
Yep.
So communication.
So if you go that route, if you go that route and you know exactly what your party's going to do, then you know exactly what maps to prep or draw, what you can think, as you were saying, Adam, like noodle around on what enemies you want them to fight, you know, what makes sense for this. You can do the math for the XP rating. If you don't want to have that above table conversation, or your players elect to not have an above table conversation, then it's context clues, right? Like, what do you think the party cares the most about? I am not someone who preps every possible direction that my party could go. I again prep the main story arc. I prep the bounties when they go to a new city. So essentially, like, once a story arc ends, I'll sit down and take like 2 or 3 hours and prep the next arc, all the bounties, NPCs, story, tying in backstories, all of that. So then in between sessions, I'm like, okay, are they going to go to the library? Are they going to go to the cemetery? Are they going to go to the creepy castle? Like, what do I feel like the party feels most motivated to do? And sometimes you really strike out. You could prep a whole thing that you want them to do, and they get there and they're just like, actually, we want to go to the coffee shop. And you're like, great, let's go to this coffee shop.
And also, if you don't want to make it to the coffee shop right now, you could just say, you go to the coffee shop and have a nice cup of coffee. Now what do you do?
Yep. And they say, what's the name of it? And you're like,
it's the coffee shop.
Tell me.
It's the corner coffee shop.
Java Joe's. That happened to me recently where someone was like, I'm going to go buy a bunch of coffee. And I was like, okay, there's a coffee shop. You go there. And they were like, what's it called? And I was like, Java Center. This is the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah.
Also, Stranger Danger, Stranger Coffee also was something that literally just popped into my head in the moment that I said it. And the planet Plee-Plu. And, just...
You just confidently make a decision. And it's true. That's the best part of DMing.
No. Yeah.
And if you're confident enough, your players don't even know.
Yeah. How do you organize your session prep?
How do I organize it? I keep...
do you just... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just use a journal. This was gifted to me by one of the players at the beginning of the campaign, which is very nice. She gave one to everyone for like character journals, and then one for me as a DM journal. So I just have Nothbow sitting here as a bookmark. It's fine. So yeah, so like I just go through. Like I just write. I take the notes. I have like one little section that's like, oh, this is the notes for what happened during the session that are important for me to remember in the prep for the next session or for a couple sessions. And then like that's one thing I'm trying to do better at is keeping active notes as I'm running the game. Because like when you're running the game, you're
Oh
doing
man,
like
I couldn't not.
yeah, you're doing a ton of things. So I'm usually just like in the moment, and then the session ends, and I have like a one sentence, like bullet point of what happened in the session. I'm like, we did so much more than that. It's fine, yeah. And then like I write down like monster health, and I keep track of it like in the margins and on pages.
Yeah.
Make notes of the cool things that like the characters design, like Roar Dash, the lion-based food delivery service.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But yeah, I keep it all in one spot. 2 spots.
I also just have a notebook. I am a Virgo. I like pretty things. But I organize it based on, again, I like pretty organized things. So there's a system in which I write my session prep notes.
Oh.
And I essentially ask the questions who, what, when, where, how.
Oh, that's a good way to do it.
And then elaborate on those. So, like this one says Chapter 1. And it says where, Florencia, levels 2 and 3, BBEG, Guinevere and Gargoyles. The clues. So I'm answering the who, the what, what is happening. And it says K-pop, missing acolyte, Oetta is her mother. Like just like dives into each of those. And then the session itself is like, here are the triggers, the connections. This one I guess I'll expose here because it died and K-paw scared the goat away. But Charlene is the human turned into a goat, is a member of the Carousel Court and knows K-paw and could have helped the party find her if they would have helped transform her back into a human.
You win some, you lose some,
Yeah, Gahesh. I needed y'all to find Gahesh at one point in my session prep. So it's like Gahesh is a member of the Carousel Court, can be found with the DC 13 perception check when looking around town if you walk around. No one ever found him, so then I just made him your buddy as you were in the thing. So like it's okay to I like to organize mine by answering those questions because it helps me feel like the story is fleshed out. But it's also okay. I guess what I'm trying to say is like 2 things. I also have these like random notes like taped in here because things change.
Yeah. Decisions are made.
Decisions are made. Your party tells the story with you. So like you have to be flexible with them.
Yeah.
So instead of like ripping out the page and writing something new, I just add these sticky notes because yeah.
And I think
anyway,
part of this is also
my ADHD kicked in and I ran.
No, that was great. That was a great explanation. That gave me more insight into how you prep. And
okay, cool.
I had like initially done the same kind of thing, right? Where I designed like a big bad for like one of the arcs and where they were gonna go and what they were going to do, and like I had it all written out here. But because I'm running XP, by the time they got to this was designed for level 5. And by the time they got here, they were level 11.
Oh.
So I had to change everything that happened here, or else they would just walk over it, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Different ways to do things.
Different ways to do things.
There's not one way to flip a pancake.
No.
Um,
Is that?
what else have I learned about session prep? um, I I mean, it's hard to stay high level, right? Like, I want to talk about NPCs, but that's a whole nother
Yes.
episode. I want to talk about like, yeah, um, weather. Circle back to the weather thing.
Mhm.
This might be overkill, but I had a player in my game ask for a calendar.
Who would have done
So I
that?
had to make. I don't
What a
know.
ridiculous request.
So I used an online like free fantasy calendar maker, and one of the options on the calendar was to include weather, and it includes weather based on the climate and the hemisphere that you're located in.
Dang.
And so now if I just look at the map before or the calendar before session to know what the weather's going to be like that day.
That's sick. That's so cool. I didn't know that app existed.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, in case no one picked up on it, it was me. I was the character who wanted the calendar. I'm so meticulous about it.
I think Ed had. I remember Ed had asked, I think before you asked, and it was in session, and Crabbo, who played Leo Fritch early on, was like, "Do you have one of those?" And I was just like, "Yeah." And then after the session, I just made one. And it was fun. It was fun to think about. It's a very special calendar. Anyway.
Yeah. Can we gush about your calendar for a second? Because I love the concept behind it so much that it's just like, it's 4 months and it's just every season. So good.
Yeah.
I just used Harp Toast calendar, which works.
Yeah.
But yeah. Keeping track of days, very important for me. I do it a lot. Days and moon phases.
That could play into your session prep too. Like, do you have lycanthrope in your party? Because if so, you need to know what phase the moon is in. Yeah. And that's something to check between sessions for sure.
But also, it's your world and your moon could act however you want it to. So.
Yeah. Follow whatever cycle you want. Maybe it's full for 8 days straight and this person gets no reprieve.
Yeah. There was a show that did that, and it made me so, like, frustrated. I can't remember which show it was. It was some anime where, like, every night it panned up to the full moon in the sky, and it was, like, based in real world. And I'm like, they can't be the full moon 4 days in a row. This doesn't work. That's not how the moon works. A really stupid thing to get me out of the mindset of the story being told. I was just like, you can't use the moon as a plot device if it's always full. Unless you want to. You know, then you can.
Yep. You can't have fun heart-to-hearts in the moonlight. It's just another night. Yeah. What else do you do that's special, Adam?
What's that?
What else do you do for your session prep that's special?
What else do I do?
Yeah.
Like, I make maps sometimes. But that's only when they're, like, entering a new place or going into a boss room. But, like, I want to just... One of the most intense days of prep I ever did was prepping Bexley Manor. So I'm going to flip a couple things. So if you catch us live and not in the podcast version, you could look at it. But I'll try to describe. I have a notebook where I kind of designed a town and a manor on the top. So I took the floor plans of a real mansion and turned them into multi-level 3-stage maps of a ground floor, a top floor, and a basement with the proper dimensions for where combat would happen. And, like, it was a lot of work for something that the party did not explore all the rooms for.
Oh, no!
It's just, you know, kind of by design, but...
I ran this... This is a total tangent, but I ran this one-shot once. It was an all-evil one-shot. They were like level 14 evil bads trying to defend your castle from a group of adventurers. And I prefaced it as like, this is a 3-hour, 100% combat one shot. Like, min max the fuck out of whatever you want to do. Just like, know that that's what this is. And you're protecting this room at the very top attic of the house. And I made all these fun triggers in all the rooms, and everyone knew something. Like, all of the evil baddies, all the PCs knew something special about the house. Like, one player knew there was a dragon in the basement. Another player had like a spider they could just call upon that like ate people. One person knew that one of the staircases was a mimic. Like, all of this like fun stuff that they could like bring to life on their own. And literally, like, it was just, no one got strategic about it. It was just like a no holds bar trying to get up to like all the stairs, blocking the stairs. It was just like no one went into other rooms, just up to the attic. And the PCs almost lost because the monk of the hero party just kept striking everyone, and they would fail and then they'd be stuck.
Yeah.
Yep. And I remember this distinctly. Avis played this one shot. They played a Minotaur. And they were like a barbarian or something. And it was like, pow, 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 stunning strike in the doorway. So for like 4 turns, this huge Minotaur was blocking everyone from getting up the stairs.
Yeah.
It was great. Anyway, that's a tangent.
This is a tangent. For mechanics of like, why didn't they just push him? He's stunned. He automatically fails at strength saves. So you could just push him out of the doorway.
I have no idea.
Never think about pushing the Minotaur. But yeah.
Anyway.
It's just one of those things where it was a learning moment for over prepping. I'm not sure if that was a moment for over prepping for you too.
Oh yeah.
But Bexley Manor was definitely that learning moment for me, coming back around. But yeah, because you never know where your players are going to go and what they're going to explore and what they're not going to explore. So sometimes the best thing to do is to just make the main rooms, and if they prompt you with looking at the side rooms, you can create them on the spot, or roll them on the table if you don't enjoy that kind of improv.
Yeah. It's so easy to make like a very simple like D4 or D6 table on your own. I've thought about this, but I don't think I could do it with either parties for the games that I'm running right now. I've thought about like session prepping based on like the route I think the party would take through the town to get to where going that session. Like, who would they interact with? Like, getting kind of detailed on like what buildings they would pass and like what NPCs, like what would they learn on this specific venture. I think about that a lot on like travel days too. Like, what is in this area? What is this thing? Prepping. I used to prep and use random tables for like those sessions specifically. They were never in the Feywild, but I used the Sylvan forest roll table a lot just because it's like wildernessy. For like, oh, this person failed a perception check and failed in whatever arbitrary way I want to deem that, and so now I'm gonna roll on this table to see what they're gonna fight. But then it felt, for me, it felt less story driven.
Yeah.
And just like more like old school D&D dungeon crawling, like let's just fight things to fight things, which is still fun. I like to do that sometimes. But
yeah, that's definitely one of the
style.
Like downsides of trying to prep travel hazards, especially if you don't make the travel hazard itself part of like a story to get to the next place. Like if it's just random encounters, sometimes it just feels like you're meaninglessly fighting things, or you're rewarding them with something that's like way almost like doesn't make sense for it to be there kind of thing. Yeah, that's something I've recently been redesigning myself.
Unlike the gnolls, which were a
Yeah.
great red herring. Yeah. So essentially, I feel like we've given lots of tools for session prepping. The DMG gives an infinite amount of tables on this subject.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how you want to use them.
The DMG is also very much like, here are the tools. How you session prep is going to be custom to you. Like you've got to just kind of feel it out. And some days you'll go in and you won't be prepped enough, and then you'll know it for next time to prep more. And then some days you'll prep too much, and then you'll know that you can kind of pull it back. Or it's also like never shameless to over prep and then take that prep you took and put it somewhere else in the story, like later on. Like you could have a lot of ideas for story arcs that could happen.
Yes.
And if your party doesn't find them, it doesn't mean you just have to scrap them and they can never come back. You could sometimes put them back in later in the story in a place where it makes sense. Especially if your party takes a right turn you're not expecting and you have one of those scrapped storylines in the background. Perfect place to take that and put that.
Yeah. Are we ready for blesses and banes?
Let's do some blesses and banes.
Bless.
So, I want to...
One, right off the top of the noggin. Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, my first one was a bless for your style, is that it doesn't take... It doesn't take a bunch of time out of your week. Like, sometimes you don't have the time to do the kind of session prep that I'm doing. And your games run like you do a lot of prep. Even though you're not doing prep between each session, because you've kind of front-loaded all that prep into creating the campaign and the storyline. And I think that's a big bless for your style of prepping.
Yeah, DMing doesn't have to be a full-time or even a part-time job. It can just be fun. You can spend maybe 5 hours a week session prepping. Like that's probably more than, or 5 hours a month session prepping, which is probably still more than what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bless table talk. Table talk. Figure out what your players want from your sessions. Figure out what they want to do next. If you don't like improv, like there's like just do it. I literally did it in the podcast the other day. I was like, just so you know, the thing that Godfrey really wants to do is the next story arc. So if you want to run headlong right into the very next like multi-day trudge through hell, go for it. But that's what you're heading towards. And everyone was like, no, I want to go get a haircut and get brunch and go to the library.
Yeah.
Which I figured most people didn't want to do that. I figured most of the party didn't want to just like run into the next storyline.
We learned cool stuff because of it. So
yeah.
It's good.
You learned real cool stuff. I would say a bane we talked about here at the end, to utilizing some of the DMG resources like the rolling tables and things. Unless you know how to fit that into the larger story, it can sometimes feel removed from the overall narrative unless you're playing like a very segmented, we're just running this around this world having fun, fighting stuff and leveling up and becoming gods. Then you do you. But for my style at least, it can sometimes be a bane, even though it's really convenient to just like scroll to that page and roll on that table.
Yeah. I don't like giving banes. I don't know where to put them. Or like what's even a bane here? Because like in this topic, we're just kind of talking about how we prep, right?
Yeah. You had a bane?
Yeah. I mean, don't over prep. But that means something different to everyone.
Whatever
So
that
like
means.
it's something you just have to
Yep.
feel out, and it's not implicit to the way either of us prep in particular. I think if there was a bane to the way that I prep is that it's fairly time intensive because of the way I do it, because I don't spread it out over a week. I do it in like a 3-hour burst right before my session on Fridays. Yeah. It's
Hey,
whenever you have time to.
that works. Last night I literally Googled a map and pulled it into Roll20 while the party was saying they were going to that place. So
Nice. Yeah.
that's a perk of digital DMing.
It is. That's gonna be a good topic once we can cover it, I think. The difference. Yeah. I mean, Bless's prepping is fun. At least for me. Like, I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah.
And the way I prep, one of the things that I didn't really touch on is that it lets me kind of go with what I'm feeling that week. Like, if I get really excited about an idea that I didn't have for my campaign before, I could work it into the campaign as it's going and find a way for it to fit and make it make sense. And then I have more fun in my session to session because I'm creating something every week that I'm like, yes, I'm super excited to showcase this or to try this out.
I mean, that's certainly a bless for your style and a hard bane for my style because, like, although you could do that, I don't do that. And so sometimes the game does feel a little, well, that's not true. It never feels stale once you're in it. But, like, sometimes for me, I'm like, ugh, here we go again. Like, this part again. Because I'm not, like, sparking my creativity when it comes to, like, that piece.
Oh, that's what I've got for blesses and banes. I'm yeah.
That's it. Very loose
I
episode,
think it's a good topic to talk about,
very loose
even
topic.
if it is a loose one. Because if nothing else, it could spark ideas for the ways that you're prepping if you are listening to this and trying to DM or thinking about DMing for the first time. Like, the contradictory advice is don't over prep, but prep enough. Have fun with it. It's really like yeah.
But, like, also over prep if you want to, because as you said, Adam, you can just, like, recycle those ideas in other parts of the campaign. You've already put the legwork in. Like, maybe you'll have to change the creatures that they're fighting because they'll be overpowered for them, but, like, you can certainly take the overall premise and the NPCs if they haven't been used and just recycle them.
Yeah, I don't think you're able to over prep story ideas. The only thing you're able to over prep is specifics, I think.
Yep.
Like, it's really easy to try to over prep places, locations, maps, monsters. But if you're just prepping like storylines, those can work in whenever you want them. And if they don't get touched on, you could change them however you'd like to. And it'll be a twist. It'll be cool. So I guess, like, if I were to say, give any kind of advice, if you're thinking about running a game and you don't know how much to prep or what to prep, just do it. Just prep what you think is enough. Go into the game. If you ended up not prepping enough, you'll learn for next time. If you ended up over prepping, you'll learn for next time. If you ever under prep, just roll on a random encounter table and have them fight something. That'll take about an hour and a half.
Yep.
You'll be good.
Yep.
You'll be ready for next time.
Yeah, you just have to learn by doing. I have one thing to add and then a question, actually, that I just realized is something we could talk about. So the thing to add is, I say this again with a grain of salt, session prepping should not be stressful. Yes. This is a game. is a
It's a
game. 90% of the people playing this fucking game are not being recorded or streaming. And even if you are, it's a game.
Have fun. Even for the DM. It's a game for the DM too.
Having fun. You're a player too.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get on the soapbox, but I just wanted to add that. Like,
should we just have a soapbox?
Whatever session prep works for you. We should. I think I say that every episode.
Yeah, let's have a soapbox episode where we just preach about things that we like.
Yeah, we should. Bonus. Patreon only. The question that I have, actually, this reminded me. I have never ran a Wizards of the Coast module because it stresses me out to think that I need to learn a textbook to be able to play a game because I like improv so much. And I know little to nothing about actual Wizards of the Coast D&D lore, so I don't feel like I would be able to properly improv in a Wizards of the Coast module because I don't know like anything about D&D lore, to be honest. Because I just take ideas and monsters and stat blocks that I like. Normally I don't even read under the stat block on D&D Beyond. I just read the stat block and then I make them fit for my world. So I don't know what it would be like to session prep for a module.
Yeah. I have run one, but it hasn't been an official D&D one. I've ran one that was free from like the Sandy Peterson's Cthulhu mythos. They sent out one for Halloween, and I took it. It was a one-shot that I was going to run for the podcast one day when we couldn't meet for a one-shot. And then I loved the premise of it so much that I converted it into a session in my game. I changed some of the creatures, I changed some of the premise, I changed here and there from it, but kept like the main through line so it made sense. And like it worked surprisingly well. Like it was really good. It was really fun.
Yeah. I mean, I've never even opened a module. Like, everyone says that it's kind of like a choose your own adventure story where it's like, if your characters choose this, then you do this. If that happens this way, then this goes this way. And yeah, it's very foreign to me.
Yeah. Maybe we should do that someday. We should just each run an official module.
No!
Just to get over that speed bump. To see what other people are doing.
All right. I mean, we could try it.
Maybe not. We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. We talked about session prep. We're on all the social medias. You can find us at Both Is Good Pod, Twitter and Instagram, and YouTube at Autumn Moon Studios, and TikTok at Autumn Moon Studios. Yeah. We're both in a podcast called Utopia, a Dungeons and Dragons podcast.
It's good.
And we do quarterly streams on our Twitch channel.
We do those too.
If you like us, support us on Patreon. Tiers as low as $1 a month. Did I miss anything, Adam?
So. Is this also a podcast? Or is this just a YouTube and Twitch stream?
This is also...
Where can they find this podcast?
You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. Google, Apple, Spotify, on the interwebs, through an old school RSS feed. Whatever you want.
Cool, yeah.
And that's it.
Goodbye.
For this episode.
Both is good.
Both is good.